What's up, guys? Welcome back to Build Cool again. Today, we're back to work on our 1986 Honda Helix CN250. And in this episode, it's time to start changing the looks of this thing a little bit. So I finally got our new handlebars in, and I think it's time to go through, pull these old things off, and get some new handlebars on here. Now, I still want to go through and change the controls. I have a different brake master cylinder that I'd like to use on this, but I don't have it here at the shop. So we're just going to go ahead, get the handlebars mounted on here, and then from there I can figure out what I want to do with the switches and all that at a later date. But once we get that taken care of, I'd like to go through and get the radiator pulled off because we got our radiator fan in. So now I can go through and figure out how I'm going to mount that thing. I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of cutting on the fan because there's like a weird, you'll see there's like some weird mounting holes that are way off the side and it's going to cause it to not really work. So I think if I just cut those off, come up with some brackets, we'll be able to get that all mounted on here. And then once we get that all taken care of, I want to get the rest of the intake box taken off that goes from where the air box used to be to the carburetor itself. So that way we can just run a normal air filter on this thing. But I need to get that off so I can measure it. And then maybe I can move the battery box back, or at least unbolt it and start figuring out where I want to put the battery box, because I've got some stealthy ideas with that thing. But before we get started, let's go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button so we can keep on building cool shit. This thing's gonna be done before you know it, and you're gonna want to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out when we take this thing out for some rides, because I definitely want to go enjoy the road on this thing. But with all that being said, let's get started. So we went through and we got the handlebars on, the new throttles on, and it's hooked up, and we got the air little intake tube thing off as well. So now it's time to go back underneath the thing and remove the radiator back out of it, so that way we can start working on getting our fan mounted to our radiator, and then we can get the radiator mounted back in there. So I'm gonna go ahead, get you guys all set up. We'll get the radiator pulled out. Hopefully mounting the fan will go pretty easy, fingers crossed. And then if all goes well, maybe we can even start working on our plumbing for the radiator in this episode too. But we need to go through and figure out our fan and all that before we can start working on any of our cooling tubing. So I'm gonna go ahead, get you guys all set up, and then we'll get that radiator out and tear on into this thing. So with all that being said, let's keep going. off a ton of work on this thing. We got the new handlebars are on it, the new throttle is on and hooked up, the radiator fan is installed, the coolant lines are pretty much figured out now. We clearanced the little section behind the rear of the gas tank so that way the radiator can sit all the way against that little remainder of the brace that would have been there from the factory. I guess that would be the best way to explain it. But yeah, we got a ton done on this thing. So in the next episode, hopefully we'll get our brake master cylinder installed on this thing. Maybe cut the rear of the frame and start figuring out our rear suspension so we can get the rear of the seat to sit down, so that way it's not sitting all up and we can figure all that out. I'm gonna want to round out the rear of the frame back there so it looks a little more visually appealing, if you guys know what I mean. But before we get out of here, let's go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button so we can keep on building cool. This thing's getting really close to being done, and like I said earlier, you're not going to want to miss out when we start taking this thing out for some test rides. But with all that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace!